There are mothers who realize too late that they taught their children not to value them. It didn't happen through a speech. It happened through every silent gesture, every boundary they never set, every act of disrespect they let slide to avoid a fight. And the worst part is they did it believing that this was how they showed love, when in reality they were only signing an invisible contract where their dignity was worth nothing. Stay with me. Gabriel here. Welcome to the Stoic Garden. Today we're going to walk through 7 concrete psychological reasons that explain how a child ends up treating his mother without respect, and we'll ground it in clear strategies so you can recover your authority, your boundaries, and your inner peace without begging for attention or turning into someone you're not. By the end, you'll know exactly which invisible patterns sustain this dynamic and what move actually changes everything, especially the last one, which is the most uncomfortable to accept. Let's begin. Reason 1, and it hurts because it looks like kindness, but it's slow poison. You confuse love with sacrifice, and without realizing it, you train your child to see your time as if it were air, as if it appeared for free. You teach him that you can always do it. You're always there, you always adapt. You always break yourself a little more so he doesn't feel even a scratch. This starts with small things, almost innocent ones. You cancel plans because he needs me. You give up your rest because, poor thing, he's stressed. You swallow your exhaustion because he's my son. And of course, you do it with your heart in your hands, not with bad intentions. The problem is that the human brain learns through repetition, not through speeches. If your presence is automatic, if your help is immediate, if your availability is unlimited, then your value becomes invisible. There's a brutal psychological detail here. When something is always there, it stops being appreciated. Not because the person is bad, but because the mind gets used to it. Like the light in the house, like water from the tap, like that mattress you only miss when you sleep on the floor. Your child doesn't wake up one day saying, "I'm going to despise my mother." He simply gets used to you adjusting, and that habit creates a sense of entitlement. And on top of that, you reinforce the idea with your language and your actions. "Don't worry, I'll do it. Leave it, I can handle it." It's nothing. You say it to make his life easier, but the message that slips in through the back door is something else. Your time has no cost. Your energy has no cost. Your peace has no cost. And if something has no cost, why would it be respected? Halfway down this road comes a scene many mothers know. You ask for something minimal, something human, something simple, and he responds with annoyance, with eye rolls, with that tone that leaves you frozen. And you start wondering if you did something wrong, if you're exaggerating, if it's just a phase. But tell me this, how is he supposed to take your needs seriously if you crush them yourself every time they appear? How will he treat your presence with care if he has never seen consequences for treating it like a doormat? Here comes the Stoic part, without theatrics. Seneca, who wasn't some gentle monk but a man deeply involved in power and real conflict, wrote that, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it," and that applies perfectly here. You do not have an endless supply of hours, patience, and health. Every time you erase yourself to show love, you're paying with the only currency you never get back. Love is not disappearing. Love is not turning yourself into a service. Love is not living in emergency mode for another adult's emotional life. Healthy love looks more like a strong root that holds up a tree, not a rope stretched until it snaps. If you break yourself, you're not loving better. You're teaching others to treat your breaking as normal. So what do? You start with something simple and powerful. You stop explaining so much, justifying yourself so much, asking permission to exist. You reclaim your schedules, your rest, your plans. If he speaks to you as if you were less, you don't reward him with extra attention. If he only looks for you when he needs something, you don't jump in like an automatic lifesaver. You learn to say "not now" with the same calm you once used to say "yes," even when it hurt. And when you recover the value of your time, something interesting happens. At first there will be discomfort, of course, because the system was designed for you to always give in. But afterward, what remains is a mother with dignity, and that presence carries more weight than 1,000 speeches. That's where respect begins, not through fear, but because it finally became clear that your life counts too. Reason 2. You overprotect him and get him used to depending on you without respect, and this is far more common than people admit. I'm not talking about caring for him, I'm talking about rescuing him. I'm not talking about supporting him, I'm talking about preventing him from stumbling. You raise him as if life were a padded hallway, and you were the guard running ahead to place cushions on every corner. The problem is that a child who is never allowed to carry anything ends up believing that carrying responsibility is beneath him. He gets used to someone else solving things, and that infantilizes him inside. And when someone becomes infantilized, he doesn't feel gratitude, he feels entitlement. He doesn't say, "What an amazing mother I have." He says, "That's the bare minimum." Because his mind registers it as a fixed system, like a silent contract. There's also something psychologically uncomfortable here. When you overprotect him, you're also sending him a message about yourself. Without words, you're telling him that the world scares you, that you yourself don't trust life, that you need to control things to feel calm. And a child, especially as he grows older, does not respect someone who lives dominated by fear. I say this carefully, but I say it clearly. Constant fear can be smelled. And when it's smelled, contempt appears. This is where an ugly pattern is born. He makes a mistake, you cover for him. He gets into trouble, you solve it. He avoids his responsibility, you make the call, you apologize, you fix the mess. And every rescue is another brick in the wall of his irresponsibility. Not because he's a monster, but because he's learning a logic. My actions have no real cost. Then the day comes when you try to restore order, because you can't take it anymore, because you're drained. And he gets angry as if you had betrayed him. He speaks harshly to you, blames you, throws accusations at you, and you're left confused because I did it out of love. But do you see the trick? Your love became a system that kept him from maturing, and no one likes having a privilege taken away once they're used to it. Think of it like a plant. If you keep it in a greenhouse its entire life, beautiful, protected from wind, strong sun and rain, it grows nicely, yes, but weak. The day you move it into the real world, it breaks. And guess who the weak plant blames when it snaps? The hand that moved it. That's how an overprotected child works too, except instead of breaking quietly, he often does it with arrogance and disrespect. It's worth asking a question that almost no one wants to face, honestly. Are you protecting him because he truly needs it, or because you can't tolerate seeing him uncomfortable? Because that's the difference. A strong mother guides and observes. An anxious mother intervenes and controls. And when you control too much, you create a dependence that disguises itself as closeness, but inside it's only fear and habit. From a Stoic perspective, this comes down to one word: strength. Not the strength of shouting, but the strength of tolerating necessary discomfort. Musonius Rufus, a Roman teacher who spoke about discipline without decoration, said that adversity does not destroy a virtuous man. It gives him the field in which to exercise his character. If you take that field away from your son, you take away his character. And then you wonder why he doesn't respect you. Because he doesn't even respect his own capacity, let alone yours. So what do? You begin to loosen control intelligently. You allow him to face reasonable consequences. You stop running in first. You support him without rescuing him. You calmly say, "This is yours to handle," and you endure the uncomfortable silence that comes afterward. You don't become his enemy. You become his reference point. And when he plays the victim, you don't buy it. When he gets angry, you don't kneel. When he pressures you, you don't trade your dignity for temporary peace. At first, yes, he will complain, because he's used to you being his cushion. But over time, that discomfort becomes the price of his growth, and it gives you back something that has no price: authority. A calm, steady authority that doesn't need to fight. Because a mother who stops rescuing also stops being taken for granted, and that's where, even if it stings, respect begins. Reason 3, you allow disrespect to avoid conflict, and in doing so you weaken your boundaries. And the saddest part is that many times you do it believing you're being mature, that you're keeping the peace, that you're stopping things from escalating. But peace bought with your dignity is not peace, it's silent surrender. And when your child sees that he can cross the line and you still stay there, he learns something very clear about the place you occupy. There's nothing mystical about this. It's basic psychology. Behavior without consequences is behavior that repeats. If he talks back to you and you let it go, if he raises his voice and you change the subject, if he humiliates you with a comment and you smile just to avoid a scene, what he registers is not, "My mom is patient." He registers, "I can do it." And next time he'll do it even more easily because the permission has already been given. Many mothers get confused and think setting boundaries means starting a fight. No. Setting boundaries means marking territory calmly, without explaining yourself as if you were on trial. Conflict is not created by the boundary, it's created by the abuse. The boundary only reveals it. Because when you say "not this," and the other person gets angry, what's upset is not their love for you, it's their habit of doing whatever they want. And here comes the classic family theater. He disrespects you, and when you try to say something, he gets offended, plays the victim, accuses you of exaggerating, of being dramatic, of always the same thing. And you, to avoid ruining the evening, swallow everything. Without meaning to, you teach him that with an outburst or a bit of emotional blackmail, he can deactivate your boundaries. Do you really want to live with an adult who learned that your dignity can be negotiated with a tantrum? In the middle of this dynamic, a question appears that you should ask yourself without fear. When you allow that disrespect, who are you really protecting? Your child or your fear of feeling alone, guilty, or judged? Because many times the problem is not that you don't know how to set boundaries. It's that you fear what happens afterward. The silence, the tension, the possibility that affection will be withdrawn as punishment. And here's the sarcasm that never fails. Some children behave as if respect were optional, but help, money, time, food, the house, that's all mandatory. Curious, isn't it? When it comes to demanding, they're sharp. When it comes to acknowledging, they suddenly go blind. And if you keep sustaining the system where he commands with his tone and you obey with fear, you're training him for the world as someone who doesn't know how to coexist without dominating. Setting boundaries doesn't mean turning into stone or becoming the police. It means your rules stand even if your voice is soft. If he insults you, the conversation ends. If he shouts, you walk away. If he speaks with contempt, you don't spend 20 minutes explaining why it's wrong, because that only gives him a stage. You say something simple, short, adult, and you act accordingly. Consequence is the language the brain truly understands. At first, of course, he will push, because boundaries work exactly like that. They get tested. And you will feel guilt, because your emotional system is used to confusing firmness with cruelty. But firmness is a form of serious love. It's telling him, "I will not allow you to be that version of yourself with me, even if it makes him uncomfortable." When you reclaim boundaries, you reclaim something more important than obedience. You reclaim your place. A child can disagree with you, feel frustrated, argue with you. But if he learns that humiliating you is not an option, he learns respect. Not because you shout louder, but because it finally becomes clear that your presence carries weight. Reason 4. You are emotionally available at any cost and you lose authority. I'm not talking about being affectionate. I'm talking about always being on guard, as if your life were an emotional emergency center. If he's okay, you're okay. If he's not okay, you fall apart. If he gets angry, you rush to fix it. And without realizing it, you become a figure that doesn't inspire respect, but use. Because when a mother becomes emotionally unlimited, the relationship changes shape. You are no longer a guide. You become a permanent container. You are no longer a reference point. You become the dumping ground where everything he doesn't know how to handle gets thrown. And yes, a child may need containment when he's young. But when he grows up and you keep functioning as free therapy, as the shock absorber for every tension, he doesn't learn regulation. He learns release. There's a subtle trap here. You believe that if you are always available, he'll come closer, value you more, understand how much you love him. And many times the opposite happens. You become so accessible, so reactive, so always there, that your presence loses status. Not because you're worth less, but because you step down from your own pedestal every time you abandon your center to chase his storm. And the pattern forms. He arrives loaded with emotions, you listen for hours. He explodes, you calm him down. He treats you coldly, you try to reconnect. He disappears, and you stay behind wondering what you did wrong. Your emotional life starts orbiting around his state. And that, as harsh as it sounds, is the perfect recipe for being disrespected. Because someone who sees how easily you fall apart also learns how easily you can be controlled. At some point, this quietly steals your authority. Because authority is not about being cold, it's about being stable. And if today you're fine, tomorrow you're shattered, the next day you're begging for affection, your child doesn't feel a steady mother. He feels a mother moved by the tide, and when someone is moved by the tide, no one asks them for direction. They get pushed. In the middle of all this, stop and look honestly. Are you available because it's healthy, or because you're afraid to set an emotional boundary and be punished with distance? Do you listen because you want to, or because you feel that if you don't, you become a bad mother? Because that's where the hook is, guilt. And guilt is a terrible steering wheel for raising a respectful adult. Epictetus, who went from slave to teacher of character, said that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them. Translated into your home, it's not your child's anger that forces you to fall apart. It's the story you tell yourself when you see him angry. He's going to leave. He's going to hate me. I failed. And with that movie playing in your mind, you become an emotional puppet. The way out is simple but not easy. You start regulating yourself before trying to regulate him. You learn to listen without absorbing everything, to support without drowning, to say, I understand, without saying, I'll take responsibility for it, and above all, to cut access when there is disrespect, even if he is upset. Because being upset does not give you permission to hurt others, and if you excuse it, you're training him to do it. When you regain your emotional center, your child may get angry at first, because he no longer has the button that activates you whenever he wants. But then, a different kind of mother appears, one who doesn't break herself to hold him up, one who loves him without losing herself, and that, even if he doesn't applaud it in the moment, is what puts authority back in its place, the quiet authority of someone who respects herself first. 5. You take on blame that isn't yours, and he learns to manipulate you with pity or anger. This is one of the most common things in good mothers, because guilt is a poison that comes with a label that says love. And when your child discovers that guilt bends you, he starts using it as leverage. Sometimes he does it consciously, sometimes it's just pure habit. But the effect is the same. You end up apologizing for things you didn't even do. Look at what this looks like in real life. He speaks badly to you and you think maybe you pressured him too much. He disappears and you wonder what you said wrong. He makes a mistake, and you throw yourself into the center of the problem as if you were the official guilty party. And of course, in your head it sounds logical because a responsible mother reflects on herself. The problem is that there's a fine line between responsibility and self-abandonment. And you cross it every time you turn his behavior into your guilt. Psychologically, this trains a dangerous dynamic. If every time he explodes you back down, if every time he plays the victim you start justifying yourself, if every time he accuses you, you defend yourself through tears, then he learns a simple trick. He doesn't need to talk things through. He doesn't need to make amends. He just needs to press where it hurts. Guilt makes you manageable, and a manageable person eventually loses respect, sad as that is to say. Listen carefully, because this is the knot at the center of it. You believe that if you take on more blame, he'll lower his guard and come closer. But many times the opposite happens. He gets used to you carrying what belongs to him. And when someone gets used to being emotionally rescued, they start demanding rescue as if it were a right. Do you see the trap? You offer understanding and he turns it into permission. Then comes the emotional blackmail, wearing whatever mask works best. One day it's pity, with that tone of, no one understands me, and you rush to comfort him, to explain that you love him, to justify yourself all over again. Another day it's anger, with that cold look and that distance that punishes you, and you grow desperate to get back to being okay, as if your peace depended on his mood. And yes, it sounds harsh, but here's the hit. As long as you keep reacting like that, he keeps control of the emotional climate in your home. The worst part is when you become the lawyer for his disrespect. He's stressed. He's going through something. He didn't mean it. And of course, he may be going through something, no one is denying that. But adult life is full of pressure, and that does not give anyone permission to spit on you. If you normalize mistreatment with excuses, you make it part of the relationship. So then comes the point where an inner decision has to be made. Stop negotiating with guilt, not so you become cold, but so you become fair to yourself. If he accuses you of things that are not yours to carry, you do not step into the ring to defend yourself as if you were on trial. You return the responsibility to its owner calmly. What you feel is yours. What you did has consequences. I'm not carrying that story. And then you stop talking, not to punish, but to stop feeding the theater. And yes, at first he will try to turn up the volume, because when a strategy stops working, people usually repeat it more loudly. The key is that you do not unravel. You do not start begging for approval. You do not try to buy peace with empty apologies. You hold on to the most important idea. You can love your child without turning into his emotional punching bag. When you let go of blame that isn't yours, something changes. He no longer has the rope to pull you around, and you recover something that felt lost: clarity. The clarity to know what is yours and what is not. And over time, that clarity turns into respect, first toward yourself, then outward. 6. You avoid difficult conversations, and the distance grows without repair. It's like having a crack in the wall and painting over it so it won't show. At first it looks better, yes, but the crack keeps spreading underneath. And one day, without drama, without warning, you realize you don't talk like you used to. You don't look at each other the same way. There is no longer trust, only coexistence. Many mothers avoid those conversations because they're tired, because they don't want more tension, because they feel that anything they say will blow up. And I understand that. But avoiding it does not solve it, it only delays it. And when you delay what hurts, the pain doesn't go away, it turns into distance, it turns into habit. It becomes that strange silence where everyone stays in their own world and no one dares touch the subject because this is better. Distance doesn't come from one single fight. It comes from what was never said in time. It comes from accumulated disappointment. It comes from the words you swallowed so you wouldn't make anyone uncomfortable. It comes from that time he disrespected you and you went into the kitchen to cry in silence as if it were normal. And every time you don't name it, the message that settles in is simple. Here, nothing gets repaired. It just gets swept under the rug. There's a question that hurts, but it puts things in order. Are you really avoiding the conversation for him, or are you avoiding it for yourself because you're afraid he'll reject you, blame you, or leave you talking to yourself? Because many times the difficult conversation is not difficult because of the subject. It's difficult because it threatens your image of being the mom who keeps everything together, and that image is costing you dearly. And here comes the irony. There are homes where people talk about everything except what matters. They talk about the weather, work, food, what happened online, but they do not talk about respect, boundaries, or wounds. It's like having a fire in the room and debating whether the couch matches the curtains. It looks elegant, but the house is burning. A difficult conversation is not a fight, it's maintenance. It's putting on the table what is already in the air. It's saying calmly, this is what is happening between us, and this is what I need to change for us to be okay. No endless speeches, no theatrical blame, no threats. But with real firmness, because real firmness does not need to shout, it needs to hold. This is where I like to bring in Cleanthes, one of the earliest Stoics, one of those who spoke of character as daily discipline, not inspiration. He said that nothing great holds itself up without constant effort, because virtue is a daily conquest, not a permanent possession. And a mother-son relationship, when there is already tension, is exactly that. It is not sustained by good intentions. It is sustained by repeated actions, even when they are uncomfortable. So what does action look like? It looks like this. You choose a moment when you are not both in the middle of a storm. You speak directly without attacking. You name behaviors, not identities. You do not say, you are a bad son. You say, when you speak to me like that, something breaks. And you set a boundary that is real, not a sermon. If it happens again, the conversation ends, access is cut off, the dynamic changes. Not as punishment, but as consequence. Because without consequence, no conversation means anything. And something else. In that conversation, you also do your part without humiliating yourself. You can acknowledge where you gave in, where you avoided things, where you allowed things out of fear. Not to carry blame that isn't yours, but to clean up your side of the street. That is maturity, that is emotional leadership. And yes, he may get uncomfortable. He may become defensive. He may try to escape with sarcasm or silence. You do not chase. You hold your ground. If you stop avoiding what is difficult, the distance stops growing in the shadows. There begins to be a possibility of repair, even if it is awkward at first. And if he does not cooperate, at least you recover the one thing that was always in your hands, your dignity and your clarity. Because a mother who dares to speak about what matters also dares to live with respect, even when the other person doesn't like it. Reason 7. You abandon your own life and teach him that he can ignore you without consequences. And this is the end of the road because it's the most structural part of all. When your world shrinks down to your child, when everything revolves around him, when your identity becomes so-and-so's mom, something dangerous happens. You become predictable, absorbable, a guaranteed presence that won't be lost no matter how badly you're treated. It's not that it's wrong for your child to matter, it's that he becomes the only center. Your friendships grow cold, your hobbies disappear, your goals freeze, your body gets neglected, your mind stays on permanent alert, and suddenly your child does not have a mother with a life of her own. He has a satellite mother, one who is there, orbiting, waiting for a signal to exist that day. And here comes what almost no one wants to accept. A child respects a mother who respects herself more, not out of selfishness, but because respect is learned by watching. If you treat yourself like last place, he learns to treat you like last place. If you erase yourself so he can shine, he does not learn to value your light. He learns to take it for granted. And when you abandon your life, you also create an invisible weight, because he feels that you live for him. And that kind of burden does not create love, it creates pressure. It creates the urge to escape. It creates irritation. It's as if your presence came with a hidden emotional bill, and the instinct of many children, especially as they grow older, is to run from that bill. And when they run, you suffer more, and the cycle becomes uglier. Deep down, this too is a form of control disguised as love. You say, I do it out of love, but many times there is fear underneath it. Fear of ending up alone, fear of no longer being needed, fear of discovering who you are when no one needs you. So you cling to that role like a life raft. But a role is not a life, it is a function. And when the function becomes your identity, respect starts to erode. Think about it coldly for a moment. What does a child learn when he can disappear? Answer when he feels like it, speak however he wants, and you are still there, available with no real change. He learns there is no cost. He learns the relationship holds itself together. He learns that you do not move, and when someone never moves, they become part of the emotional furniture. Nobody argues with a table, they just use it. And the worst part is that you reinforce it yourself with that energy of, it doesn't matter. You say it's fine, but inside you are drying up. You get used to living half a life, and then you're surprised when he treats you like half a person. Because the truth is simple, the child who sees his mother with no life of her own does not feel admiration, he feels comfort. And comfort without gratitude quickly turns into indifference. The way out is not to stop loving. The way out is to start existing again. Reclaiming your life is not a whim, it is a correction. It means having plans again, friendships again, interests again, time boundaries, your own spaces, silence without guilt. It means caring for your body and mind as if they belong to you because they do. It means stopping the performance that says your right to breathe depends on your child being happy. If your child gets to live his life, have his own world, his own tastes, his own decisions, his own time, then how convenient that you somehow cannot have the same. How curious that adulthood is for him, but for you it means always available. No. If you want respect, show yourself as a woman with a life, not as a service with legs. When you return to your center, the dynamic changes. Not overnight, not by magic, but it changes. Because a mother with a life of her own does not chase, beg, or crawl for attention. A mother with a life of her own offers love, but she does not offer herself up as a sacrifice. And when your child understands that you also have a world, a value, and a limit, he learns what he should have learned from the start. A mother is loved, yes, but she is also respected. If you made it this far, hold on to this. Respect is not begged for, it is built. And when a child stops valuing his mother, it is almost never because the mother didn't do enough, but because she did too much in the wrong way, without boundaries, without consequences, without a center. Love without structure starts to look like servitude, and no one respects what they feel belongs to them by right. Now it's your turn to do something concrete and grown up. Reclaim your time, set your boundaries, stop rescuing, stop carrying guilt that isn't yours, and dare to say what you've been avoiding. And above all, return to your life, not to punish your child, but to save your dignity. Because when you choose yourself, the relationship either finds order or reveals itself, and either way you are set free. If this video gave words to something you've been swallowing for years, subscribe and join me on this path. And write the channel's phrase in the comments, I am Stoic. Also tell me what country you're listening from, so we can keep building this community of people who love with firmness and do not abandon themselves just to please others. I'm Gabriel, and this is the Stoic Garden. On screen you'll see 2 videos to keep going deeper, because this doesn't change with one beautiful idea. It changes with practice and consistency. Claim your place, hold your value, and do not negotiate your dignity, not even with the person you love most.